Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the little bit of light. We've got to adjust something. We're used to doing these shows at nighttime, so we didn't get to cover up the... I actually have a skylight above my desk here, so it's kind of giving a bit of a bleached out look. But that's okay. We can adjust the cameras and that for later episodes, but I thought that we would just continue on and bring you today's highlights of headlines and news from Surrey, from around Canada, of course the US, and elsewhere in the world. Now, there's a lot to get through today, so we will just get on with it. We will be covering the situation where the Trump administration may decide to pull out of peace talks with negotiating between Russia and Ukraine. We'll talk about an officer-involved shooting at the in Los Angeles and their response to that call for assistance, and how the LAPD is using less than lethal force and acting as a leader in law enforcement to bring in new technologies and to also offer up body cam and other footage of incidents when they happen in order to increase transparency and trust within the community. They are definitely a leader nationwide in the US and in some parts of the world to bring transparency and information to the public. Let's start out with local news here in Surrey, British Columbia, as we are filming from the local studios in Metro Vancouver, British Columbia. I am James Cousineau, taking you on a journey through the headlines today. Now, there was a Surrey stabbing last night. Police have arrested one suspect after a stabbing incident at a home in Surrey's South Westminster neighbourhood last night, and that sent two people to hospital, one with stab wounds, the other with blunt force trauma. Police indicate it doesn't appear to be a random incident. Over in the Guildford community, meanwhile, emergency crews are currently responding to a significant fire in Surrey's Guildford neighbourhood this morning near 154th Street and 104th Avenue. Dark smoke is visible in the area and the intersection is closed. When we look at different beaches, of course, the summer weather is on the horizon, but unfortunately, there seems to be that the RCMP have reported a swimmer is presumed drowned after going missing off of Vancouver's Wreck Beach. And unfortunately, that is just a warning to people to be careful as you start to partake in the summer sports. And also with the ocean waters, you want to be aware that even though the weather may be warm, it hasn't warmed up the Pacific Ocean much, and you are still at risk of hypothermia. So please take care when out exploring the wilderness or swimming in the oceans, the lakes, and the rivers. There was a migrant worker rally that essentially healthcare workers rallied in Surrey yesterday expressing fears of deportation due to recent federal immigration changes and calling for government action. This is after changes to the Canadian Immigration Act and the number of foreign workers that are allowed in, especially as it comes to the healthcare industry. So again, that rally took place in Surrey yesterday, and political figures are paying attention given the upcoming election in just a few weeks. In other news in Surrey, the Surrey Council has approved a 240-site new commercial truck parking in South Surrey. So 240 new commercial truck parking spaces are in the works for South Surrey. As we know, the Morgan Heights area, as well as others, are definitely growing rapidly, especially when you look at Campbell Heights with the new commercial and industrial space that's been developing rapidly over the last several years and will continue to grow over the next few. So yeah, 240 parking spots for the trucks I think is well overdue, and it's good to see some progress there. Now we'll jump over to national news. Of course, we did touch base on the federal election coming up, and advance polls are now open. Advance voting for the federal election begins today and runs through April the 21st. The campaign, of course, is continuing across the nation, and following last night's English language debate, party leaders are back campaigning. The debate saw exchanges focused on U.S. trade relations under President Trump and the cost of living, in addition to national security issues. Pierre Poilievre, meanwhile, is pledging to scrap the plastics ban, and that was announced yesterday that if elected, his government would repeal the current ban on certain single-use plastics such as grocery bags and straws, arguing it drives up costs. Now, when we look at the Liberals, they are maintaining the lead, and that is according to the latest Nanos research poll, suggesting the Liberals hold an 8-point lead over the Conservatives nationally as of day 27 of the campaign. We will see people going to the polls on the 28th of this month, only 10 days away, and we wait and see with bated breath as to who's going to come out ahead. I do think that it is going to go to the Liberal government once again under Mark Carney. But again, we know from elections, whether it's in Canada or the United States, that anything can happen in a presidential or prime ministerial campaign. We've seen craziness in the US, and we could see an upset in Canada, but I don't think that's very likely. With the Liberals leading the Conservatives in the polling, I do believe the Liberals will take the office of Prime Minister. I also don't think that the NDP have a snowball's chance in hell, as Justin Trudeau called out the US on 51st state issues. But again, that saying rings true for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives and the NDP under Jagmeet Singh. I do anticipate, though, that the NDP may pick up some seats in key ridings as well as other ridings across the nation to increase their presence in the parliament as people are turning away from Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives at this time. There was a missing person reported by the Canadian border, and that has been resolved. Fortunately, the search for a woman and 2 children that were reported missing after attempting to cross the border from the U.S. into the province of Quebec has ended. RCMP confirmed the group crossed illegally, but that they have been located and they are safe. In Hamilton, Ontario, meanwhile, an innocent bystander has died following a shooting in Hamilton, Ontario last night. More details are yet to follow. We will keep you updated on that story as we find out more details in the coming hours. Skipping over to international news, U.S. airstrikes in Yemen. That is Houthi-run media in Yemen reporting that the U.S. airstrikes targeting the Ras Issa oil port have killed at least 58 people and injured over 100 more. In the Gaza conflict, Israel has bombarded and continues to do so over Gaza, with reports of at least 34 more Palestinians killed today. Hamas is reportedly rejecting an interim ceasefire proposal from Israel, demanding a comprehensive agreement to end the war. Palestinian photojournalist Fatma Hassana was reported among those killed with her family in the Israeli strikes. As a journalist and news reporter myself, my thoughts and my condolences go out to the other family members who survived and her family, friends, and colleagues. The ICC is questioning Hungary. The International Criminal Court has asked Hungary to justify why it did not execute an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when he recently visited the country. And that is going to be interesting because it's not too often we hear of Hungary in the news, and also with the ICC questioning them why they didn't make that arrest. And of course, we know that Netanyahu makes frequent visits to the U.S., or at least has made several now. But in that context, of course, the U.S. is not a signatory in the International Criminal Court. So that is why he has not been arrested in the U.S. That is also why the ICC is not questioning the United States on the potential arrest of Netanyahu on American soil. Switching over to China, satellite imagery analysis suggests that China is expanding its naval power, revealing at least 6 nuclear-powered submarines docked at a strategic base near Qingdao. And that is something that we will continue to watch, as well as we know that the world is watching China as a credible threat. But again, the world is also watching the U.S. in terms of their instability in all different areas, whether it's trade, whether it's military and national security, international security, or of course finance. Now, on that subject, global trade concerns are persisting about the impact of the U.S. tariffs on global trade and inflation, with organizations like the World Trade Organization predicting potential declines. We know that that has had a massive impact on different global economies, the cost of living, and no matter how much the Trump administration continues to lie and mislead the American public and trying to convince the world that costs of items are not going down, he came out with a whole list of areas in which the prices were dropping for American consumers, and overall it was just a pile of crap that continues to spew out of his mouth. Now, I, for one, think that I should be buying stocks in toilet paper companies because you know that Trump and his administration must be going through a lot of it wiping their mouth since they talk so much shit. Let's switch over to Abrego Garcia situation, and that is the Maryland father who has been deported to El Salvador and imprisoned in their system. The U.S. government continues to deny responsibility when it comes to actually repatriating them to the United States. Now, let's take a look at this in a bit further detail. In an interview, Gorka stated this is the president's administrative member, and he is the czar for anti or counterterrorism, and that is a real concerning issue coming up because Gorka stated that there are those who love America, like the president and his administration, and there is the other side that is on the side of the cartel members, on the side of illegal aliens, and on the side of terrorists. He then explicitly questioned whether these critics are technically aiding and abetting them. Adding that aiding and abetting criminals and terrorists is a crime in the federal statute. He went on to state that people could be arrested and charged federally if they are advocating for the release of Mr. Garcia for the simple fact that, they are trying to quell dissent and any opposition from speaking out against Trump and his administrative policies. Now, the comments were made in context of criticism surrounding the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, as I said, the Maryland resident who was sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador despite a U.S. court order preventing his removal from the country. The administration has called the deportation an administrative error, but has resisted court orders to facilitate his return. Gorka specifically referenced actions like Senator Chris Van Hollen's trip to El Salvador to advocate for Abrego Garcia's release, suggesting such efforts could potentially form the basis for felony charges. The administration, meanwhile, with Garca and other administration officials repeatedly referring to Abrego Garcia as a terrorist or linking him to the MS-13 gang, despite Abrego Garcia having no criminal record in either the U.S. or in El Salvador, and having previously been granted protection from deportation to El Salvador due to threats from the gangs there. At this point, Americans are demanding not only that he be released and that he be brought back to the U.S., but also at this point, because of the radio silence and the lack of credible information, they are demanding proof of life that Abrego Garcia is still in fact alive in that prison in El Salvador. We know that hundreds of people are killed in that prison every year, and that it is essentially a cesspool of crime and violence within the walls of the prison. And at this point, it is being described as a concentration camp for the U.S. to send people to, as opposed to an actual prison. In essence, excuse me. Sebastian Gorka equated criticism of the administration's handling of Abrego Garcia deportation with siding with terrorists and criminals, explicitly invoking the federal crime of aiding and abetting as a potential consequence for advocacy efforts. So again, trying to use the court system, the laws, and the justice system to silence anyone speaking out against their illegal action in deporting Mr. Garcia to El Salvador. Let's move on to the update on the Florida State University active shooting incident that happened yesterday, April the 17th. Now, a mass shooting occurred at Florida State University, also referred to as FSU, in Tallahassee, resulting in 2 fatalities and 6 injuries. The shooter, identified as 20-year-old FSU student Phoenix Inkner, was the son of Leon County Sheriff's deputy and used his mother's former service handgun in the attack. Ickner, who was wounded by responding officers and refused to comply with commands, is in custody and receiving medical treatment. The motive for the shooting, which took place near the student union around noon, remains under investigation, with authorities noting Ickner invoked his right to remain silent. The 2 deceased victims were not FSU students, and the 6 injured included 5 who were shot and 1 hurt while fleeing the shooting. They were reported in fair condition by Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare as of April the 18th, so earlier today, with some expected to be discharged. The campus was secured by 3:15 p.m. local time, and classes were canceled throughout today. And we'll see how that plays out after the long weekend. Hopefully they can get back to school and have different crisis staff on hand to help students and employees, teachers, and so forth who may be struggling to get through this event. A small memorial was set up outside the student union, and the investigation continues with the FBI and local law enforcement all involved in that. President Trump, meanwhile, briefed on the incident while meeting with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, addressed the shooting during a press conference on April the 17th. He described it as a shame and horrible, stating, "It's a horrible thing that things like this take place." When asked about potential changes to gun legislation, Trump emphasized his support for the Second Amendment, saying, "I'm a big advocate on the Second Amendment. The gun doesn't do the shooting, the people do." And suggested he would not advocate for new gun laws, citing his obligation to protect the constitutional rights. Some criticize his response as lacking empathy, noting the absence of condolences for victims or their families. Let's even take a look at the fact that Donald Trump seems to be hiding behind the Constitution when it comes to certain things like protecting students in schools and universities, as opposed to the fact that he's talking and floating ideas of running for a 3rd term as President of the United States in conflict of the Constitution. It seems that Donald Trump only applies the Constitution where it is convenient for him to do so. Sentiment, meanwhile, on X reflecting polarizing views, and some posts labeled Trump's remarks as callous and for focusing on gun rights over victim support, while others supported his stance or criticized media coverage for omitting details about the shooter. The situation remains a developing story, with ongoing investigations into Ickner's motives and background, including his reported ties to a sheriff's youth advocacy and advisory council and past custody disputes. But that really is just the administration, again, making excuses and trying to push the responsibility off of the gun or lack of gun control. Now, let's take a look at another story. Big news, of course, coming to Surrey, British Columbia, Canada on Saturday, April the 19th, is the Khalsa Day Vaisakhi Parade. This is the largest Vaisakhi celebration outside of India, and that's set for tomorrow in Surrey, British Columbia, organized by the Gurdwara Sahib Dasmash Darbar. This is located at 12885 85th Avenue, where the event will start, and expecting again over 500,000 attendees from diverse backgrounds celebrating the Sikh celebrations and the 1699 establishment of the Khalsa by Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So tomorrow at 9 a.m. the parade is scheduled to start. It'll run until 5 p.m. The location starts at the Gurdwara, following the route along 124th Street, 75th Avenue, 76th Avenue, and 128th Street again. Features of the event will be the parade, of course, with vibrant floats, live music, dancers, community performances, of course, showcasing the Sikh culture. And a hallmark is the tradition of Seva and Langar, with hundreds of booths offering free food and drinks from local families and businesses, reflecting the Harvest Festival roots. A multi-day carnival with rides and a midway run by Shooting Star Amusements operates at the temple from April the 10th to April 21st. Tickets cost $450 per ride, or $30 for an all-day wristband. Now, in cultural significance, Vaisakhi marks the celebration and anniversary of the Khalsa, and the symbolizing justice, fearlessness, and community service. It's also a spring harvest festival historically celebrated by farmers. The Surrey Parade, held annually for over 20 years, welcomes all cultures, fostering inclusivity. Attendees are encouraged to cover their heads as a sign of respect, especially while participating in the procession or eating at the food stalls. Public transit is going to be increased for the event, as parking is extremely limited and roads will be closed from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Attendees are urged to use public transit or carpool. TransLink provides shuttle services. Check surreyvisakiparade.com for more details on that and the lineup of events. The Surrey Police and RCMP will manage public safety and traffic. The event is a no-drone zone with fines up to $3,000 for violations. So again, leave your drone at home. Families are advised to plan meeting points due to large crowds. In case you get separated, you know where to meet, especially for the younger crowd goers. The police, both the Surrey Police Service as well as the RCMP, will have a large presence at the event, and you should make sure that your children know that if they do get separated, to find a police officer, as there will be lots on hand, and just go up to them. They can help to reunite you. Organizers emphasize once again covering heads, avoiding smoking or drinking, and disposing of waste properly. Food stalls embody the Sikh principle of selfless service, so take only what you need. The parade is a vibrant display of Surrey's multicultural identity with over 2,500 participants, including community groups like marching bands and cultural performers. It draws visitors from across Canada, the US, Europe, and beyond. In 2024, an estimated 550,000 people attended, and organizers anticipate similar or larger crowds this year. Of course, that is weather permitting, so be aware that there may be showers throughout the day in Surrey tomorrow, so you may want to bring an umbrella or just be prepared for variable weather throughout the day. Some controversy has arisen in the past years, such as when Surrey Brenda Locke referred to the event as a party, prompting Sikh organizations to clarify its religious significance. Once again, for more information on the map, transit info, and other events throughout the day, you can visit surreyvisakiparade.com. Now, let's take a look at U.S. news when it comes to Donald Trump once again targeting the media. As the world's newest dictator, he is trying to quell any type of negative coverage of himself, trying to control the media, and of course, getting upset when people don't behave like Fox News. Now, Donald Trump has a history of criticizing media outlets, but his recent actions as of April 2025, so this month, appear to escalate this approach, particularly targeting CBS and its program 60 Minutes. These actions include public statements, legal battles, and leveraging government agencies, raising concerns about the freedom of the press. As someone who has covered war zones, been on the front lines, and covered many other, whether it is national disasters or refugee crisis and other news events, I can tell you that Donald Trump's behavior is not only criminal in trying to breach the rights of the freedom of the press, but it's also insulting to those who risk their lives to bring news and important stories from around the globe. In April 2025, of course, this month, Trump has publicly criticized 60 Minutes on social media, calling it a dishonest political operative and demanding CBS lose its license. He filed a lawsuit against CBS claiming fraudulent editing of an interview with Kamala Harris and called on the FCC to investigate and punish CBS. Additionally, the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, has launched investigations into ABC and NBC, suggesting a broader effort to pressure news channels and networks. The actions seem to pose significant threat to journalistic independence and the First Amendment, potentially chilling free speech by using state power to target critical media. However, the legal and ethical debates around these moves are complex, with some viewing them as political strategy and others as attacks on democracy, which we know Trump has become a poster child for anti-democracy movements. The report provides a comprehensive overview this report, of Donald Trump's recent actions targeting freedom of the press with a focus on 60 Minutes, CBS, and other network news channels like ABC and NBC, as observed over this past month. The analysis draws on recent reports from reputable sources to ensure accuracy and in-depth, reflecting complexity and controversy surrounding these developments. So we have done a lot of research, and we've also looked at many different sources of information to ensure that we are bringing an unbiased look at this story as much as we also will put in my 2 cents, but I'll be sure to tell you when it's my opinion as opposed to actual fact. Donald Trump has long been vocal in his criticism of the media, often branding journalists as the enemy of the people. This rhetoric has historically included attacks on various news outlets, but recent actions, particularly this month, suggest an escalation. These moves involve not only public sentiments and statements, but also legal and regulatory pressures from Trump and his administration, raising significant concerns about the state of the freedom of the press in the United States. Now, mid-month, here in April, we've seen Trump intensify his attacks on 60 Minutes and its parent company, CBS. On social media, specifically on X, he labeled 60 Minutes a dishonest political operative and demanded that CBS lose its license despite the network itself not being directly FCC licensed. It's only the local stations that are. This was repeated twice since taking office, and CBS being a primary target both times. Trump's legal actions include a lawsuit filed against CBS, initially reported at $20 billion, but also mentioned as a $10 billion lawsuit in some other sources, claiming that the editing of the October 2024 interview with Kamala Harris was fraudulent and constituted election interference, according to the LA Times. CBS responded by providing new raw transcripts and tapes asserting standard editing practices, which were made public to counter these claims by CNN. Trump has demanded a large settlement, reportedly a lot of money, to resolve the case, adding pressure to CBS, especially as Paramount Global, CBS's parent, seeks an $8 billion merger with Skydance Media. And that comes in from the LA Times, that report, or that information. Now, a significant aspect of Trump's strategy involves leveraging the FCC. He called on them and the chairman, Brendan Carr, whom he appointed and described as highly respected, to impose maximum fines and punishments on CBS for alleged unlawful and illegal behavior, though no evidence was provided. Carr has kept an inquiry open, inviting public comment, and has also launched an investigation into ABC and NBC, and indicating a broader regulatory pressure on the news network channels. The move is seen by some as an attempt to use state power to silence critical media, a practice experts like Brendan Nyan warn is anti-ethical and it is against democratic principles. While the focus has been on CBS, the FCC investigations extend to ABC and NBC, suggesting Trump's actions are not isolated to one outlet. These investigations, led by Carr, add to the perception of a coordinated effort to pressure multiple media entities, potentially chilling the reports on the administration. This broader scope underscores the systemic nature of the threat to press freedom. Now, 60 Minutes has continued to feature stories critical of Trump's policies, particularly on issues like the Russia-Ukraine war and Greenland's annexation. While Trump claimed were derogatory and defamatory, the dispute over editing, especially on the Kamala Harris interview, has been a flashpoint, with Trump alleging fraud, while CBS employees and legal experts, including First Amendment attorneys, deem the lawsuit frivolous. The network released unedited transcripts, as I already stated, to the FCC to counter these claims, highlighting the controversy. Now, journalists and experts have expressed alarm at these developments. Leslie Stahl, a 60 Minutes correspondent, stated at a First Amendment award event that 60 Minutes is fighting for their life. Feeling the First Amendment is vulnerable, Brendan Nyan, a political scientist, noted that Trump's calls for using state power to punish media are a concerning trend, potentially undermining democratic norms. These perspectives highlight the perceived threat to the freedom of the press. Now, Trump has also amplified these claims, such as alleging U.S. aid-funded political and other outlets with $8 million, which was debunked. Politico received $43,000 in 2023-2024. This pattern of misinformation adds to the narrative of undermining credible journalists. His history of branding journalists as the enemy of the people further contextualizes these actions as a part of a long-standing strategy. Now, there is concern that CBS might settle a lawsuit to resolve the dispute, especially given the merger with Skydance Media. Reports suggest that this could be perceived as a payoff for merger approval, adding another layer of controversy. That, according to the New York Times. This potential settlement could set a precedent for media outlets facing similar pressures, further impacting press freedoms. Now let's take a look at some of the actions that have gone on. Now, there's been public criticism on X of 60 Minutes, calling it dishonest and political operative, demanding license revocation. The lawsuit was filed claiming $20 billion for fraudulent editing of the Kamala Harris interview, again against CBS. And demand for a settlement from CBS. He demanded, being Trump, demanded a lot of money, impacting the merger with Skydance Media. And the FCC investigation call against CBS, he asked the FCC to impose fines and punishments led by Chair Brendan Carr. Now, when it comes to ABC and NBC, the FCC investigators have launched investigations into broader regulatory pressure on news networks and news channels. Now, keep in mind that Trump has also floated the idea that, or at least his representatives have, that if the networks were to provide or produce different documentary programs in which the Trump and his administration were made to look like superstars, they may consider reducing the settlement amount or looking at dropping the lawsuits. This is also rumored that he has put ideas out there through his representatives and administration that other alternatives could be paying certain Trump family members, such as Don Trump Jr., lots of money to give them reality shows or other programs on the networks. Again, just basically bribing through the Trump family for Donald Trump to drop the actions against these networks. And that, again, is just pure and evil when it comes to the criminality being played out within the White House and by the Trump administration. And, of course, the dishonesty and of Trump himself. I mean, it's just disgusting. Now, the evidence leans towards Trump's recent actions this month, representing a significant escalation in targeting freedom of the press. He has been weaponizing government agencies like the FCC and filing high-stakes lawsuits. He appears to be leveraging state power to silence the critical media, a practice that undermines journalistic independence and the First Amendment. The controversy is evident, with legal experts questioning the validity of claims and journalists expressing vulnerability. These actions, while framed by some political strategy, pose a grave danger to democratic principles, potentially chilling free speech and setting a precedent on future media suppression. And I will add that there have been some online that have been stating that I should be arrested and charged with aiding and abetting criminality and terroristic activities because I'm speaking out on behalf of Mr. Garcia and his family in demanding the U.S. take responsibility and repatriate this individual who was wrongly sent to an El Salvadorian prison. So again, people online are calling for me to be charged and arrested, but what they forget to realize is that I'm in Canada, I am a Canadian, and here we still recognize freedom of speech. Now, the Trump administration has been pushing for a ceasefire and a peace deal to end the Russia-Ukraine war on the next subject. and that is the fact that they are talking about pulling out of the peace talks between Ukraine and with Russia. So again, it is really a scary consideration for what's going on. Now, when it comes to weaponizing the government and other things, he doesn't seem to have a problem when it is targeting U.S. citizens. But again, he doesn't want to take responsibility and actually take any firm stance against Vladimir Putin when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, Marco Rubio has stated that Donald Trump is growingly frustrated with the lack of progress in negotiations, and that the shift could go to Donald Trump administration to just completely abandon the peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. This shift could have significant geopolitical, humanitarian, and economic implications, and we'll take a look at some of those implications as it goes. Now, when we look at the background of the current status of talks, the Trump administration has been pushing for a ceasefire and a peace deal to end the Russia-Ukraine war, which began with Russia's full-scale invasion in February of 2022. And some of you may recall that I was in Ukraine in March of 2022 covering the war there and the atrocities that were being committed by Russian troops and the Russian government. Now, despite efforts, including a U.S. brokered talks in Saudi Arabia and in Paris, no lasting ceasefire has been achieved. Russia has rejected a full 30-day ceasefire, and both sides have violated a limited moratorium on energy infrastructure strikes. Now, the U.S. position, Rubio has warned that the U.S. will move on from peace efforts within days unless a clear progress can be made. And citing other global priorities, he and Donald Trump have expressed impatience, stating he may take a pass if Russia or Ukraine obstructs a deal. The Russian and Ukraine stance at this time is as follows. Russia insists on conditions that would effectively undermine Ukraine's sovereignty, such as retaining control over occupied territories and blocking Ukraine's NATO aspirations. Meanwhile, Ukraine is open to a ceasefire. They demand security guarantees, and they completely reject any capitulation. But let's take a look. The reasons for the U.S. withdrawal from the peace talks at this point are the lack of progress, as talks have stalled due to Russia's maximalist demands and perceived stalling tactics, such as continued military offensives and rejecting U.S. ceasefire proposals. Now, the U.S. has become growingly frustrated with both parties, as the U.S. expressed irritation with Russia and with Ukraine, and that is in relation to resistance for certain concessions, such as minerals deals tied to peace efforts. So again, Donald Trump trying to extort a very volatile and tragic situation for his own benefit. Now, there's also competing priorities. Rubio emphasized that Trump has other global issues to address, suggesting the administration may redirect focus if talks remain unproductive. Domestic political pressure from Trump's campaign promised to end the war quickly, and yet that has not materialized, potentially pushing the administration to pivot to avoid prolonged involvement in a conflict seen as not our war. When it comes to the implications of abandoning peace talks, the escalation of conflict, without U.S. mediation, the war is likely to intensify as Russia is preparing a new offensive, and Ukraine may face increased pressure without U.S. diplomatic leverage. Stepping back could diminish U.S. credibility as a global mediator, particularly among NATO allies who rely on the U.S. leadership to counter Russia. European allies have urged Trump not to be swayed by Russia's tactics, but let's face it, Trump, in my opinion, is just a puppet of Putin, and we know that is definitely playing out in all of his actions. Now, Russia may interpret the U.S. withdrawal as a green light to pursue its territorial ambitions, potentially consolidating control over occupied Ukrainian territory, but also he could potentially see that as a green light to start taking on other territory from other nations. Now, European nations already skeptical of Trump's commitment to NATO may face increased pressure to fill that diplomatic void. This could lead to divisions within the alliance, especially if Europe resists Russian demands. When it comes to China, China may step in as a mediator, as indicated by planned talks between Chinese and Russian officials, potentially shifting regional influence towards Beijing. The increased civilian suffering cannot be overlooked, as its continued fighting, such as the recent Russian strikes on Kharkiv and Sumy, will likely exacerbate civilian casualties and displacement, with over 80 being wounded in a single Kharkiv attack on April the 18th, so earlier today. Now, Ukrainians under Russian occupation fear forced Russification, with reports of torture and coercion to accept Russian passports. A U.S. withdrawal could embolden Russia to intensify these efforts, and the prolonged conflict could drive more Ukrainians to flee, straining European resources and complicating regional stability. Progress on a mineral deal, in the meantime, seen as a strategic investment in Ukraine's sovereignty, may falter if peace talks collapse. This could limit U.S. access to Ukraine's lucrative resources and weaken economic ties, and we know that that is important to Donald Trump because anything to do with the mighty dollar has got his attention. The U.S. could maintain or escalate sanctions on Russia, as Rubio hinted at the new measures being crafted in Congress. Alternatively, Trump could lift sanctions to normalize ties with Moscow, a move that would alarm Ukraine and Europe as well as other allies. Now, this continued war risks further disruptions to the Ukrainian grain exports and Russian energy supplies, contributing to global inflation and food insecurity, something that Trump, of course, denies that there is any inflation. Yesterday alone, he stated several times that there virtually was no inflation in the U.S., let alone in the world. Now, the U.S., Trump could halt or reduce aid to Ukraine, as it's suggested by his warning to Zelensky in February, forcing Kiev to seek more support from Europe and other nations, or to make concessions to Russia. Again, just really Trump's way of backing Putin and the Russian agenda. Abandoning talks could also be framed as fulfilling Trump's promise to avoid entanglement in foreign wars, appealing to his base. However, it risks criticism by bipartisan lawmakers who support Ukraine, such as those backing sanctions legislation. Ukrainians, already skeptical of Trump's peace plan due to his perceived pro-Russia stance, may view U.S. withdrawal as a betrayal, damaging long-term U.S.-Ukrainian relations, in addition to Americans who support the Ukrainians and stand proud to back them. And that could be a major issue as well. Now, the Kremlin could exploit a U.S. pullback to claim victory, portraying it as evidence of Western weakness. The U.S. could maintain limited involvement, focusing on economic leverages like tariffs or sanctions to pressure Russia while encouraging European-led mediation. Trump may prioritize direct talks with Russia, potentially sidelining Ukraine and trying to secure a deal that aligns with U.S. economic interests, such as a joint rare earth minerals projects. Go figure. With the U.S. stepping back, Europe could lead peace efforts through a coalition of the willing. To enforce a future agreement through this would require significant coordination and resources, though. When it comes to the critical perspective on the Trump administration's approach, it appears to be prioritizing quick results over a sustainable resolution, reflecting a transactional view of diplomacy, something we've heard very often when it comes to Trump and other issues. While frustration with stalled talks is understandable, abandoning mediation risks ceding influence to Russia and China, undermining Ukraine's sovereignty, and destabilizes Europe. The administration's mixed signals, there is optimism from Vice President J.D. Vance, contrasted with Rubio's warnings, and that suggests internal divisions that could weaken its negotiating stance. Moreover, Trump's reluctance to pressure Russia, despite evidence of Putin's territorial ambitions, raise questions about the U.S.'s commitment to countering Russian aggression. If the Trump administration abandons peace talks, the Russia-Ukraine war is likely to escalate with severe humanitarian and geopolitical consequences. Ukraine would face increased pressure to make concessions, while Russia could solidify its gains. The U.S. global standing is also something that is at risk, particularly among NATO allies. That could erode, and Europe may struggle to fill the diplomatic gap. However, maintaining sanctions and supporting European efforts could mitigate some of those risks. The next few days, particularly with the planned London meeting, will be critical in determining whether the U.S. persists or pivots away from its mediation role. Once again, very big news out of the U.S. and really displays how much impact it is having on the chaos that is the current White House situation. So flipping on to another story, let's take a look at something in Los Angeles, and that is the release of a lot of body cam footage, a lot of other footage when it comes to the LAPD. They have implemented a great deal of new technology, and especially, oops, sorry folks, just checking to make sure that wasn't an important update coming in. Nope, it'll be for tomorrow's stories. But in any event, the LAPD has been instrumental in leading not only the United States of America, but the world in implementing new technologies, new accountability measures, and new reporting measures to the public in trying to increase public trust within the Los Angeles Police Department and the Los Angeles community. A part of that is not only implementing a lot more use of technology and less than lethal weaponry, but they've also taken to really being transparent in terms of releasing body cam footage and keeping the public updated through their website and through the media on different issues impacting the U.S. Impacting the Los Angeles community. So we're going to take a look here at a release that was put out today in an update of an incident that happened in Los Angeles last month. And that was where an individual was barricaded within a home threatening to shoot any police officers that came in. He had called 911 himself, threatening to kill himself and to bring harm to any officers who tried to stop him. With that, he further claimed to have a grenade at the time, and he was in a residence, multi-residence unit, so that was, of course, a first priority of the LAPD, who brought in the SWAT team to deal with the issue, trying to de-escalate the situation and take the individual into custody. Now, because there was a police-involved shooting that was a part of this process, there is a full-scale investigation that's being brought in and is ongoing. So I'm going to bring that up on screen here. We'll take a look at what the LAPD's update is on this situation. So once again, we'll bring that up behind me. I will shift out of the way and turn the volume up so you can actually hear the current report. There we go.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Forkage, Public Information Director for the Los Angeles Police Department. This critical incident community briefing is intended to provide you with information about an officer-involved shooting that occurred in Southwest Division in the city of Los Angeles. You're about to see relevant video footage and learn about other evidence and police procedures related to the case, so you can have a better understanding of what occurred based on what we know right now. The LAPD conducts very thorough use of force investigations, which typically require investigators to interview multiple witnesses, view numerous hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. We are still at the very early stages of this investigation, which can often take up to a year to complete, and our understanding of the incident may change as this additional evidence is collected, analyzed, and reviewed. We also do not draw any conclusions about whether the officers acted consistent with our policies and the law until all the facts are known and the investigation is complete. A word of caution. The images and information you are about to see may be disturbing. When a police officer uses force to arrest a suspect or defend against an attack, it can be graphic and difficult to watch. In addition, there may be strong language used by those shown in the video. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for young children and sensitive viewers.
Hello, I am Captain Alex Chogyoji, Commanding Officer of Media Relations Division of the Los Angeles Police Department. I am going to provide you a brief overview of an officer-involved shooting that occurred on March 11th, 2025 at around 8 p.m. Southwest Patrol Division officers responded to a radio call for a suicidal man inside an apartment complex in the 2300 block of Scarf Street. The caller described himself as a male Hispanic armed with a grenade and a shotgun. He warned the dispatcher that he would shoot any police officers that approached his residence and would detonate the grenade. Here are the 911 calls and corresponding radio broadcasts.
Hello, this is 911.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, this is 911. What's your emergency?
I'm gonna kill myself
Where are you?
in my house, in my apartment.
Well, can you tell me where your apartment is?
Apartment?
Okay, so I have apartment. What are the numbers on your building?
23 scarf. I have a shotgun on me.
You have a shotgun on you?
Yes.
Okay. Why do you want to kill yourself?
And I'm gonna kill myself.
Okay, what's your name, sir?
And I have a bomb. I rather have a grenade.
You have a grenade and a bomb and a shotgun?
Yes. I have a grenade.
Okay.
I don't have a bomb. I rather
And so as you can see, the 911 operator is very calm. She is doing well at extracting information out of the individual and relaying that information to officers responding. So we'll continue watching and listening in here.
I have a grenade and a shotgun.
Okay, so you have a
So I'm gonna shoot myself.
Is there a security code to get into your building or onto your property?
No, there's no security code. I don't want the police to come in here because I'm gonna shoot them.
Oh, you're going to shoot the police?
I have a shotgun.
Okay,
I have a shotgun with me.
okay. Are you black, white, Asian, or Hispanic?
They're Hispanic.
Oh,
They better not come in here because I'm gonna shoot them.
okay, I'll let them know that.
Southwest units, respond code 310-3994 and a supervisor cooking.
Southwest units responding to incident 3994. Kira called back, is still on the line with me, stating he will shoot the police if they come. Monitor for additional comments. Additional incident 3994.
The caller was later identified as Adrian Uribe. Upon the arrival of multiple patrol units, the officers established containment around the apartment complex and met with residents who provided additional information about Uribe. A portion of this incident was captured on the responding officer's body-worn video. Body-worn video cameras are used by most officers assigned to field duties. They are worn at chest level and capture a general perspective within the line of sight from that angle. The angle of the camera prohibits viewers from seeing everything the officers saw and experienced. Upon it.
So again, just as we continue to watch this, there will be some body cam footage and security cam footage. So just so you're aware, there is no graphic visuals here. So just so you're aware, there may be some language that may be offensive or content, but again, there's no graphic visuals that'll be up here.
Activation, both audio and video will turn on. However, body-worn video cameras have a buffer of video without audio from the previous 2 minutes prior to activation. This feature is designed to capture incidents that occur suddenly where an officer doesn't immediately activate the camera. Here is body-worn video from the officers involved in this incident.
¿Cómo se llama el muchacho? Adrián. ¿Casa abajo? ¿Qué es latino? Adriano Ribes? Oribe. Okay. Okay. He said they've already called here before, like they've already shut this place down, took everybody out of the apartment. Yeah, he's downstairs. I don't think it's gonna be nothing. He says he's drunk right now.
Shortly thereafter, the officers were directed to Uribe's residence. As the officers approached Uribe's residence, they saw him standing at the threshold of the front door and attempted to make contact with him.
Yeah. Hey, come on. Hey, wait, no, don't do that. Hey. Hey, baja eso. Hey, step back, step back. No. Hey, yes, please. Yeah, he's pointing a gun. Hey, come on. Move. Move back. Señor. 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 I got you. Yeah. We're good. I'll do the cop right now.
A portion of this incident was captured on security footage from a nearby security camera.
So again, I'm not sure who this individual is. He is not law enforcement, as far as I know. So he may just be one of the other residents or a delivery person who thinks that he can try to calm the suspect down. But at any event, he's taking a great risk considering the suspect is waving a shotgun at that time.
Yeah. Hey, baja eso. Step back.
Now this is zoomed in footage, as you can see. And again, still not sure who this individual is trying to calm the suspect or to intervene. But again, he didn't...
The officers made repeated attempts to have Uribe peacefully surrender by giving him verbal commands. However, he did not comply and eventually barricaded himself inside his residence.
If you come outside, point the right, you're gonna get shot. Hey, sal con las manos para arriba. Deja cualquier arma que tengas, déjala en el piso.
So again, another angle.
This is the Los Angeles Police Department. Come out your hands up. Nothing's going to happen to you. I know you do, but we don't want to hurt you. Just come out your hands up. What's wrong, Johnny? Why can't we talk? Let's compromise. What can we do to help you out?
Hey, Johnny, how long have you lived here for? Okay. Hey, so besides us leaving, what can I help you with? That's all you're gonna do is go to sleep? Yeah. Okay, well, how about this? I just want you to step out with nothing in your hands just to make sure you're okay, that's it. Hey, so, besides that backpack, what else is in the house? Oh, okay.
Notifications were then made to Metropolitan Division Special Weapons and Tactics, also known as SWAT, who began their response to the location to assist in resolving the situation. The officers continued their repeated attempts to have Uribe peacefully surrender. However, while awaiting the arrival of SWAT, and over an hour after initial contact was made with Uribe, he suddenly emerged from his residence holding what appeared to be a shotgun. Uribe pointed the shotgun toward the officers, which resulted in an officer-involved shooting. Here's additional body-worn video from the officers involved in this incident.
There you go, good job, man. Hey.
He's pointing his shotgun at us.
Uribe was not struck by gunfire, retreated back into his residence, and continued to remain barricaded. SWAT officers ultimately arrived and began formulating a plan to peacefully resolve the situation without additional conflict. A crisis negotiation team began to communicate with Uribe, and after approximately another hour of repeated attempts to have him peacefully surrender, Uribe emerged and opened the front door once more. SWAT officers then introduced oleoresin capsicum vapor gas into the residence. Here is additional body-worn video from the officers involved in this incident. Moments later, Uribe finally surrendered and was taken into custody without further incident. Los Angeles Fire Department paramedics responded and transported Uribe to a local hospital to be treated for complaints of chest pain. Uribe was treated and subsequently cleared for booking at 77th Street Jail.
Another secondary? Yep, you got it, bro. Cover the door. We're good, we're good.
Why are you harassing me? Why are you harassing me?
They ready?
There was no evidence of explosives or ordnance located during the investigation. Investigators recovered a black and brown plastic replica shotgun at scene and booked it as evidence. Uribe was arrested for making criminal threats. On March 14, 2025, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office filed the following charges against Uribe: 1 count of criminal threats, 1 count of false report of a bomb to an agency or a business, 1 count of threatening a public officer, 1 count of resisting an executive officer, and 1 count of falsely reporting an emergency. Adrian Uribe is a 44-year-old resident of Los Angeles.
In the next several months, the LAPD will continue to investigate and analyze this incident. We will continue interviewing any new witnesses that may come forward and complete any forensic tests. After the investigation is complete, our Critical Incident Review Division will forward their findings to the Chief of Police, who will make his recommendation to the Civilian Board of Police Commissioners. The board will evaluate the evidence to determine whether the officer's tactics, drawing and exhibiting a weapon, and use of deadly force in this instance met the high standards expected of all LAPD officers. If you would like more information on how the LAPD investigates all serious uses of force, visit lapdonline.org, where you can find the LAPD's use of force policy and procedures. Thank you for taking the time to view this critical incident community.
So again, that just goes to highlight the lengths at which the Los Angeles Police Department has been working to be a leader in transparency and accountability within the department when it comes to police-involved incidents. Now, again, there is a major increase in the trust and reliability when it comes to the perception by the public in Los Angeles that has happened over the past several decades. When you take a look back at times such as in the 90s with the riots there, or even the other riots prior to that, the level of trust and accountability seemed to be really at an all-time low within the LAPD and the Los Angeles community, but again, they've worked for decades to try to improve that. They have implemented all of this new technology between the body cams, the dash cam footage, the release of, as you saw in this story, the Ring doorbell camera footage, and so forth, in a means to not only keep awareness and education about officer-involved events, but also to explore and to share what new technologies are being utilized within law enforcement. If you go to the Los Angeles Police Department website, they actually show you in-depth reports on different types of weapons that are now being deployed that are less than lethal. And it's very interesting to check out. So feel free to check out the LAPD's website and find more videos. So again, this is important for us to bring in our news reports and our other stories because of the fact that in so many cases, the police, whether it's in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, or elsewhere around the globe, Police often are only making the media when it is a negative story that sheds a dark light on them. So we want to be able to bring stories that highlight positive outcomes by the actions of the police departments and individual police officers. So once again, we want to see that increased trust in the police and increased levels of transparency and accountability. And again, we think that the LAPD has reached a gold standard in this aspect of implementing less than lethal weapons, by implementing technology for accountability and for releasing that to the public to keep them updated on investigations internally and externally as they continue. So once again, this has been another news report by ProPix Canada TV, and I am James Cousineau in the studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell to keep up to date when we release new different documentary or news footage. Once again, we appreciate you taking the time to watch it. Don't forget to share this channel with your friends so we can increase our subscription base, which again, it helps us to reach a broader audience. Once again, you've been watching James Cousineau at the ProPix TV studios. Thank you very much for tuning in, and stay safe, everyone. Remember that you can leave comments in the comment section below, and we do read those. And if you have story ideas, by all means, include those there as well, or email smile@propixcanada.com. That's PROPICS Canada.com. Take care, everyone. Stay safe.